Hello, hello.
One, one, two, one, two. Yeah, yeah. You're right. He's starting. Huh? He's
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That was a bit loud. Thank you for coming to Siddhashram Shakti Center. We will be commencing the program in just about 10 minutes, so make yourselves comfortable. And in about 10 minutes, we'll be starting the program. Okay? Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for coming here at the Siddhashram Shakti Center on a Sunday afternoon. It's a very special occasion, and on behalf of International Siddhashram Shakti Center and the Hindu Council, I'd like to thank you, and of course, I appreciate the fact that you have come here to get together and remember those who passed away, who were contributed as well to the World War I, and of course, think about the victims of the family who've also suffered, those who've lost, those people who took part in the First World War I. Now, it's a day when people sit together, talk, and think about, I mean, we weren't there 100 years ago, but our family, our ancestors, some of them were there. It's a day when we actually appreciate the contribution they have for our country, the sacrifice they made for our country, And the love which they brought, which broke their families, brought our families together. Many guests have come today, and I've seen some very familiar faces as well, and it's nice to see you all this afternoon. This afternoon, this program will consist of a few speeches by a few dignitaries who are here, a dance performance, and a beautiful poem as well. But before I start this program, I had to introduce myself as well. My name is Kajal. Some of you know me, some of you don't. So I'm just a simple person who likes to come and volunteer and contribute to organizations, community organizations, which relate to different festivals, different functions, memorials, which of course are taking place in the UK. And I'm honored to be here today, and I've been honored to ask here by Gurudev Dr. Rajeshti to say a few words as well for the contribution, which was of course given by those who fought in the First World War. Now, I've seen some of you today, and I'm proud to say that many of you are wearing a poppy. And if you're not, before I even ask why you're not wearing a poppy, I'd like to know, does anybody know here why we actually wear a poppy? Why not a rose? Why not a tulip? Why not a daffodil? Does anybody have the answer? Anyone? So if I ask you why you're wearing a poppy, can you give me the right answer? Yeah, please. That's right. Thank you. You got the right answer. Well done. What's your name? Chandni Bora. Thank you so much, Chandni. Chandni is right. In fact, the reason why we wear poppy is because at the time of the war, this is the actual flower which was being planted. Now, I did a bit of research on the poppy itself, and it's also one of the most strongest plants out of a rose, a daffodil, or any type of plant. If I was to say, let's change the poppy and let's wear a rose, it won't last very long. A rose will die within 5 days. But if you wear a poppy, a real poppy, it will last longer than you think. Now, a poppy has strength. A poppy signifies strength, color, blood. The red color symbolizes blood. This is a sacrifice by for those who actually contributed to the First World War. So what we're wearing here is not a piece of decoration just to look beautiful. Oh, it's November what's the date today? November the 9th. No, it's not a decoration. Oh, it's November the 9th. I'm going to wear this beautiful decoration because I look beautiful. No, it's a symbol of blood, power, and strength. Now, before I go any further, there's one story I'd like to share with you, which probably actually makes you understand why I'm a little bit late today. I always get told off when I come late to functions. I always get told your timing is really bad, but today I have a very valid reason. When I was 6 years old, my family, we had a shop, and we had a customer who used to come. Every Christmas, he would give us Christmas gifts. No doubt, he didn't know who we were. All us 3 sisters and brothers, he would buy us Christmas presents. One day he died, and my mom went to his funeral. My mom went to his funeral, and she was very surprised that not many people turned up at the funeral. She met his wife. She hugged his wife, and she said, you know, your husband was such a lovely man. He used to buy Christmas presents for my daughters. So his wife said, do you know why? Because our son died in the Second World War. And he was unable to celebrate Christmas after that. And because my mom, he used to come to our shop every day just to speak to mom, say, hi, how are you? He was impressed. He felt loved by us. And before he died, he said to his wife, then make sure every Christmas you give gifts to those 3 girls in the family. And up until her death, which was in 2002, if I remember, she used to give us Christmas presents. This shows that the war broke many families, but brought other families together. This is why this morning I was pretty late, because my mother remembers this day very well. And we have a church nearby. We don't attend church. We don't, because it's time. I'm going to be honest with you. I love church, but we just don't get the time. Today, she made me go for a walk with her in the morning and said, come on, Moni, you have such a busy schedule, but today we're going to walk to the church. We walked, we gave her a poppy. We showed our love that this one person who died, who we've never met before. But that person who died, his father brought our family together by celebrating Christmas together. And his own family was broken apart. Why? Because his son was involved in the war. This is a day when we think about those who have broken their families, who sacrificed their lives, who shed blood for us, and created a name. We may not know those people's names. I don't, to be honest. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't. Even though I love my history background, I love history, the subject of it, but I don't know everyone's names. But the fact that these people, anonymously as well, gave up their family time to sacrifice and to serve our country. Now, I would say let's conduct a 2-minute silence for them. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call upon the stage the organizer of this particular function today. And before I do, I will ask him as well if he doesn't mind that I give him a poppy to wear as well. I think it'll be nice if he could wear a poppy as well. The person who organized this particular function is, of course, a very well-known spiritual leader, friend, guide, the person who brings the community together. For many years, it's been 20 years he's been in this country, and within 20 years, he has brought the community together. He needs no introduction. His name is Gurudev Dr. Rajeshji. If you could come on stage, please. Oh, he's wearing a poppy. Wow. I didn't see it. I'm going to ask you to say a few words, and then maybe if you could do a nice short prayer for us as well and introduce the counselor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siddhashram, Jai Gurudev. I think so. I would like to, we can stand up so we can pray for a minute. Also, I would like to invite Satyaji and my good friend, prison chaplain, Bhadris Trivedi. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Hari Om Shanti 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 Om. Please have a seat.
Thank you very much. That was really beautiful. It's beautiful how people get together and conduct their own prayers, whether you're in a mandir, whether you're in a mosque, whether you're in a nagyari or gurdwara. But everyone has their own way of bringing peace together. Now, we have, as I mentioned earlier on, a few dignitaries who have come here, and I'm very honored to call them upon stage. One person who I have introduced before and I've got on very well with as well is, of course, the worshipful, the Mayor of Harrow, Councillor Mr. Ajay Maru. Thank you. Thank you.
A very good afternoon, Jai Siddhashram. First of all, I would like to say thank you to my dear friend Rajesh Bhai for inviting me here in conjunction with the Hindu Council. It's absolutely wonderful to see some of these familiar faces that I was earlier on this morning when we had the Remembrance Day parade at the Civic Center. So absolutely wonderful to see you all back again. Just a few words, if I may say, which was said earlier on. We must never forget the enormous sacrifices made by the servicemen, the women who gave their lives to uphold the freedoms we enjoy today. In this, the century year of the outbreak of the World War I, we are ever mindful of the sacrifice made by our armed forces and the demands on the variety of services offered by them. Equally, we must make sure that the future generations learn the importance of Remembrance Day. We have an ever-increasing number of young people actively participating in Harrow and the Remembrance Day and services alongside with the service representatives and the veterans. And finally, I thank you once again for inviting me here and joining Harrow's United Act of Remembrance Day today to pay tribute for those who gave their lives for your tomorrow. God bless all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maru. We have a few, I think one performance we have very shortly here, and it's by a young lady who'll be performing very, very soon, a very nice classical piece related to Shanti, related to togetherness as well. Now, I have a few dignitaries who are about to give a few speeches, and I think we can go in any order. Is that okay? Everybody's here? Okay. So the first person I'd like to call on the stage is, of course, Lord Ahmed. Mr. Ahmed is the Baron. No. Okay. This is what I like. A bit of guidance here standing next to me. Thank you very much. Right, okay, well, I have another very recognized, well-known face who's with us today as well. A very well-known person, in fact, from a community which is, I really don't know what the right word is, but many of this community itself in the UK is a very small community. In fact, the community is a very, very friendly community as well. My heart is very close to them as well. There's one particular person I'd like to call on the stage is, of course, currently the 26th elected president of Zoroastrian Trust Funds of Europe. I'd like to call on stage, please, Mr. Malcolm Depu. Thank you. The Zoroastrian Trust Funds of Europe was actually established in 1861 to serve the Zoroastrians in UK and Europe. It's the oldest Asian faith-based voluntary organization in UK, and the first 3 Indian MPs elected in UK were all Zoroastrians and members of the ZTFE, the first 2 being its presidents. The community itself, though, I've been told as well, I've done a bit of research on Zoroastrians as well, they're known to be very, very sweet people, very dedicated to the community, and when it comes to events or memorials like this, they're one of the first people to get together and collaborate together with other communities as well. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Mr. Devu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to be called up so early, so I was not quite prepared. First of all, Your Worship, Gurudev Ji, Satya Ji, friends. I think earlier this morning, being at the Remembrance Day parade at the Harrow Civic Centre was quite an occasion to see that even today, people continue to remember those who sacrificed their lives over 100 years ago, so today we could have a better future. And what I would like to say about is partly about we're a tiny community. So to give a bit what the Zoroastrian contribution was and the role we played in the First World War. But before I proceed, let me give you a bit of background about our community. I think as you said, you don't know much about us, so I think just give you a bit of background and how we happened to be our role with the community. In the 9th century, this is well over 1,000 years ago, a band of Zoroastrians, due to intense religious persecution, left Iran in boats, sailed down the Persian Gulf, and eventually landed at the port of Sanjan in South Gujarat, northwest India, seeking sanctuary in the kingdom of the Hindu king Jadav Rana. The Zoroastrian delegation went to the court of the king, and upon seeking an audience with the king, the first thing they were shown was a bowl full of milk filled to the brim. Thereby, the king was informing them, there's no room in my kingdom, and it's time you moved on. So you can see, folks, it's not only problems we have with immigration in Britain, it also happened in a large country like India. The Zoroastrian delegation was led by a wise priest who requested some sugar crystals. Upon being given the sugar crystals, he slowly dissolved them in the bowl full of milk, filled to the brim, making sure there was no spillage of the milk, thereby indicating to the king and the courtiers that if we Zoroastrians are allowed to stay in this country, like the sugar, we'll sweeten the milk without changing its appearance, we'll sweeten your country. The king agreed. In turn, we had to meet certain 5 conditions. 3 of these conditions were that our descendants should never take up arms against India, learn to speak the local language, Gujarati, so we could integrate more easily, and our women should wear the local Indian Gujarati style sari. Because actually, coming from Iran, I think our dress was very similar to what you see today, like the Afghans or the Northwest frontier provinces. We wear the salwar kameez historically. And of course, coming from Iran, Afghanistan, we spoke Persian or Dari. So in India, because landing in Gujarat, we became Gujarati speakers. And the name we are known in India are not usually the Zoroastrians, but called Parsis, which is a name given by the Hindus, means the Persians. Our relationship with the British started very beginning when the British came to India by the East India Company. And it was a Parsi gentleman of Surat, who, by the name of Rustam Manek Seth, who organized the first trading rights between the East India Company and the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. Now, like the Hindus and of India, our affinity towards the British also came pretty quickly. Because unlike the previous Europeans named the Portuguese, they were not converting. Because they came as traders, and religious conversion was bad for business. So they left us alone, we were happy, and in turn we were able to sort of work with the British. Post 1857, which was the first Indian mutiny or the first war of independence, depends how you look at history. Queen Victoria, the then monarch of the UK, became Empress of India. And like other faith communities, the Zoroastrians swore allegiance to the King Empress. So come the First World War, of course, like the other faith communities of India, we volunteered because we volunteered for King and Empire and served in the war. If you look, those amongst you who have studied this period, many of the faiths of these serving soldiers of India were recorded. To give you an idea, the domestic Indian army in 1913 was 240,000 strong. In 11th November 1918, Armistice Day, the size of the British Indian army had risen to 1.5 million. And what is important to recognize, folks, because these are all volunteers, they were not conscripts. And what is on record that India raised the largest voluntary army in the world had ever seen. And even during the Second World War, the India raised the largest army. However, for the Parsi community, our fates are not recorded as enlisted. We participated in the war, but we are not as such, our faith is not recorded. But we do have a Parsi war memorial in South Bombay, which was established in 1926. Because we came to India's religious, to seek religious sanctuary, and because of our historical persecution, the Parsi community has never been that large. So the highest in India, when we were in the 1911 census, we were around about 90 to 100,000. But when we look at the 1921 census, our growth was very small. And one of the reasons was because people participated in the First World War. Our role in the First World War was in 5 categories, not only as soldiers, but as doctors serving in the Indian Medical Service of the British Army. Our property was used for treating the wounded. There was monetary and economic contribution. And lastly, countering German propaganda. Military records show that Parsi officers who served mainly in the Indian military service, in the medical service, served in Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq, Egypt, Palestine, and they were decorated for their bravery and gallantry. Noted examples, I can give you a few. One well-known was a man by the name of Major Ratan Shah Nariman Kapadia, who was awarded the Military Cross. But besides that, he was also awarded the French Cross and the Belgium Cross. So it's a rare honor. I think very few Indians got that triple awards. Another individual was named by the name of Colonel Firoz Shah Behramji Barucha, who served with the 14 Firozpur Sikhs. The Firozpur Sikh regiment is a very old regiment, initially formed in the Indian Army, but of course today it's in Pakistan. But it also counters both the Indian Army and the Pakistani Army today. And he was the first Indian to be awarded the Distinguished Service Order. Another gentleman was by the name of Captain Herji Jangirji Manekji Kasturji, who served again in the 14 Firozpur Sikhs and was awarded the Distinguished Service Order. The point is this, that when you're looking for contribution by the Parsis, you can pick them out in the war records because of the names and the surnames. In fact, the records of our own Zoroastrian trust funds of Europe show that one of our past presidents, by the name of Dr. Sohrab Warden, served in Mesopotamia in 1914 to 1918. Another example, which is very much in Britain, was of a Parsi who was studying in Cambridge. At the outbreak of the war, he sort of went in September 1914, registered as St. James's in the Middlesex Regiment. His name was Kershasp Ardishe Nauroji, short for Kish. He was the grandson of the famous MP Dadabhai Nauroji, who was elected in 1892 as the first Asian MP to the House of Commons. Kish Nauroji, of course, became a private, because in those days, ethnic minorities could not be into officer grade into the British Army. So he came as a private. He was posted to France in early 1915, was promoted to Lance Corporal. In 1916, he became a sergeant. And at the first battle of the Somme, he was injured, discharged militarily discharged. He went back to Cambridge, graduated. 1917, he re-enlisted. He was then, by that time, the British had seen how the Indian soldiers were performing, and he was trained for officer training. Just after armistice, he became an officer, and the War Office refused to give him the commission because he had to be trained as Sanders. He refused and said, "I'm not having any of this. I've had enough of this sort of issues." And fortunately, the British authority relented. He became an officer and became the first batch of 50 Indian officers to be trained, and he sailed for India, and he formed the first group of 50 officers in the British Indian Army. Afterwards, after he sort of discharged, because he served in Mesopotamia in the 1920s, he joined the Tatars, the well-known Indian industrial house. During the Second World War, he again enlisted. He was sent to Washington by the Indian government to be in charge of iron and steel. But one of the things he commented in his biography, he says that when he was asked by his Cockney sergeant what religion you were, he said, "I'm a Parsi, Zoroastrian." The Cockney sergeant had never heard of it. What the hell is this? There's no such religion. The Cockney sergeant asked him, "Will you swear on the Bible?" So the Parsis, are quite integrated that way. And he said, "Look, I'll swear on any book you want me to." So he says, "Good, Roman Catholic." So that was his religion. So when you look at Kish's war records, which I have seen, under religion it says XXX. And when I queried this, all this came out. So this is one example of how many of our religions were not recognized. The other example I'll give you moving on is how the Parsi community's property was used during the First World War. The famous Taj Mahal Hotel, which is well known as a landmark in Bombay, was actually in both the wars used as a military hospital. We've got another well-known hospital in Bombay or Mumbai, which is over 100 years old, which was established in 1912. That's called the Parsi General Hospital in Nepean Sea Road, those amongst you who know Bombay, not far from the American consulate. That was used as a war hospital. There was also, besides actually serving in the medical service, giving treatment for wounded, there was quite a high significant of monetary and economic contribution of the Parsi community. The well-known families, for instance, in Britain, there was a one known family who was our patrons called Sir Dhanjibai and Lady Freni Bamanji. They owned a vast estate in Windsor called the Willows. It had its own private race course. The Bamanjis were one of the richest couples in the world at that time. They had initially amassed the wealth by serving the British, giving provisions and ship chandlers during the first Afghan wars and the Boer Wars. After the war, of course, those amongst you who have studied the period of First World War, the home which was promised to them fit for heroes did not materialize. And the estates of the Bamanjis used to be opened up to allow the people to be treated and convalesced and also have open days. And not only that, but you were talking about the poppy appeal. The Bamanjis were good friends of Field Marshal Lord Haig, who was the head of the British Armed Forces during the First World War. And they were involved in setting up the poppy appeal, because one of the things what Haig was responsible for was heading the poppy appeal, and the British Legion as we see it today. And of course, there was contribution from the Tatars, the well-known industrial group. Today, Tatars are known for the Jaguar Land Rover and British Steel. But things were not like that back over 100 years ago. When the founder of the Tatars, Jamshedji Nasaruddin Tata, wanted to establish steel, the British were putting obstacles because the monopoly would be broken. So he built the first Tata iron and steel works in northeastern India with American help. The then Commissioner of Railways said to the Tatars and mocked, "There's no way the Tatars will be able to make good quality steel. And if they did, I would eat every pound they produce." Well, lo and behold, in the First World War, TISCO, or the Tata Iron and Steel Works, supplied 1,500 miles of steel rail in Mesopotamia. And you have to have good grade, and also for armaments. So when the war ended, the then Viceroy of India, Lord Chelmsford, in his thank you speech, actually went to this steel town called Shakti in North India, the Bihar state in northeastern India, acknowledged the Tata contribution, and in honor, he said from now on, this town will be called Jamshedpur after the day, in the honor of the founder Jamshedji Tata. And today, Jamshedpur is also known as Tata Nagar, the first industrial city in India. Just quickly moving on, another element was part of countering German propaganda. Initially, of course, we're all aware of what we call today's institutionalized racism. And the Germans thought these Indians are a pushover. Because as we all know, that the British Expeditionary Force, being a volunteer army, had a small force. And it was very quickly overrun by the Germans in the First World War. And there was high probability that the German troops were very much amassing on the Channel ports to come to Britain. And Britain did not have a trained army because it virtually got wiped out very quickly. So Britain had to then get in what was called the Indian Army to plug in the gaps on the Western Front. And it's very little known that if it wasn't for that contribution of the Indian Army, you would have had the Germans coming to Britain. And it was they who plugged in the gap until the conscripts then were trained up, which were called Lord Kitchener's boys, who was the defense secretary. And of course, one of the well-known battles was Neuve Chapelle, where the Indians army held the line and won good few decorations, including the Victoria Cross. And then the Germans recognized that no, these guys are no pushover. So of course the propaganda began to persuade the Indians to switch over, because they were saying that of course the British are exploiting India. Indians, to a degree, yes, they were exploiting India. All colonial powers do. But so you had to have a counter propaganda to ensure that this was not quite the case. And it was our then president, by the Nehruji Bhavnagri, who happened to be the second Indian MP to be elected in 1895, by then who wrote a booklet called The Verdict of India. And you can see that at the British Library. And on the cover of it, you've got a Sikh sepoy holding a sword and marching, and he counted step-by-step German propaganda. And what you see, that very few Indians from the prisoner of war actually switched sides in both wars, in the First World War and the Second World War. And they felt that their lives are much better under British colonial than under German colonial authorities. And I would just like to end that, for instance, the monetary contribution of the community in the Second World War, for instance, was like £6 million collectively. And the ZTFE, which today I'm the president, we nearly went bankrupt because all our money was given at that time to the war bonds. And as you all still know, Britain is still paying its war debt, both the First and the Second World War. So things were pretty grim for the people who donated money. But we still persevered, and we are still here today. And in the Second World War, just to allied, is this, that in the Royal Air Force, it's a very rare thing that one very rare occasion that only family that has won the flying distinguished cross are the five engineer brothers, a group of 4 Indians who, as brothers, who joined the Second World War. And one of them later in independent India became the first Air Chief Marshal by the name of Aspi Engineer. Another person who got the military cross was a man called Sam Manekshaw in Burma. And the reason he was just dying, because he was injured. And his superior officer said, look, you cannot award a military cross to a dead soldier. So he pinned his own military cross on him, and he was awarded a military cross. Of course, Sam Manekshaw is legendary in India, became the first field marshal. And of course, later on, it took the Indian troops to victory. And when the country of Bangladesh was created in the 1971 India-Pakistan war. So you can see examples of how the community, a tiny community, yes, fortunately, of course, our sacrifice was not in the millions, like in the Sikh case or the Muslim case or the Hindu case, because our community is small. But nevertheless, our contribution was there. And hopefully that in years to come, of course, the British establishment will recognize this contribution, because we are one of the few communities who are not there on the National Remembrance Day parade, which was held earlier this morning, because we're just not recognized from that point of view. Thank the organizers of today for inviting us here to say and what our contribution has been. Thank you very much.
Mr. Debu, thank you very, very much. In fact, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, the community is small, but the contribution is very big. And the contribution from the Parsi Zoroastrian community is widely well known. In India, you mentioned earlier on, but they moved to Gujarat. In fact, I have a few friends, the one from Surat, who used to live in London, and I had no idea who Zoroastrians were. And she explained the history to me as well of Zoroastrians, and we became very close friends. She then moved to India. It's been 4 years since she's moved back to India. The work she does there as well, not just for people who've been affected by wars and many problems we've had in the past, but also other communities she gets involved with as well. And this is where we learn knowledge from other communities. This is why we've held this memorial today as well, to find out how other communities have contributed to helping remember the victims of the World War I, and of course the victims' families. Now, we were earlier on talking about as well how the victims have suffered, how they've contributed, but we actually haven't spoken about their families, what the wives went through when their husbands went to take part in war. The wives were not housewives. They used to be known as housewives, but they had to earn a living. They had to go out as well and work in factories. And the amount of work they did, they slaved day and night just to feed for their families, for their children. Children were not even able to study. They had to go out to work as well. Some kids were working as laborers in factories. Some kids were working as, we see when we go to India or Pakistan, we see poor children on the roads, and they come up to us and they beg, oh, paise de do, give me some money, give me some money. And we tell them, no, you have hands and legs. You have hands and legs. Go and find some work. By the time of the war, the children whose fathers were out in war, who wanted a good education, couldn't get that education because their fathers were away, their mothers were slaving away, and still for the mothers to earn just even 1 penny and feed their family was difficult. So we need to remember those who slaved away just to earn a living. Today we're so lucky. I mean, we complain, no, I want to eat McDonald's today. No, dad is making me eat roti sabji. I don't want to eat Indian food. I want to eat McDonald's. We have that choice to eat McDonald's. We have that choice to eat Chinese or Indian or, anything. But in those days, they didn't have that. Whatever came to them was a piece of bread and water. And even that water wasn't clean. It was dirty water. So not just the victims, they suffered. They were helped as well at the time of war. If they were wounded, yes, as Mr. Debu said, they were facilitated. there were facilities for them. There were facilities for them for help. If somebody was ill, somebody was wounded, that's it, they get a bandage. But the wives who were working, in factories, if they fell ill, they wouldn't get sick pay. Here, if I take a day of work, I'll get sick pay. But if you were living at the time of the World War One and you were a woman working from 7 in the morning up until 8 in the evening, you'd only get a few pence a day. If you took a day of work and you sick leave, you wouldn't get that pay. So this is a day to remember even the families of those victims. This is a day to remember the children who didn't get a good education, and yet today, those who are alive, they're able to tell us their stories, share their stories with us. In fact, I wanted to bring one of our old customers who was part of the war as well, Second World War, but he was unable to come today. And I thought if he had come, he would have exactly told you what he went through as a child. No decent food, no decent living, only because his father was serving the country. Today is also a day where, as I mentioned before, we call upon different dignitaries and speak about their experiences, their history, their knowledge of the First World War. And if I'm not mistaken, and I think I've got the heads up from Mr. Satyaminas, we have two people here who would like to call upon the stage. And I don't have the names. Just give me 1 second. I do have the names. There's a lot of excitement going here at the moment because we have quite a few people. Okay. Okay, no problem. What we will do is, as I mentioned earlier on, we do have a dance performance here, which we'd like to show you on stage. This dance performance is not just a performance to entertain you. This dance performance is a classical piece of item that shows love, strength, and power. On stage, I'd like to call on this beautiful lady who's sitting right in front of me, and I didn't get to speak to her earlier on, but I'd like to call her up on stage. Her name is, of course, Miss Meera Raj. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Miss Meera Raj for a beautiful classical item. Thank you.
Thank you, Kajal. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Gurudev Rajeshji, for giving me an opportunity in such a momentous occasion. I'd like to begin my performance with a Pushpanjali. It's a Ragatala Malika Pushpanjali. Pushpanjali is an invocatory dance where the dancer offers flowers to the Almighty and seek His blessings. They then offer their respects to their Guru and the audience. Pushpanjali is then followed by 4 shlokams in praise of Lord Ganesha, Nandi, and Lord Shiva. This Pushpanjali is set in various ragams, Ragamalika, and various talams, Talamalika, presenting Pushpanjali.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meera. Absolutely beautiful dance. In fact, she was welcoming Sri Ganesh, welcoming here. Now, people pray to Sri Ganesh for strength, for power as well, and to gain a bit of peace in their minds as well. When someone departs the soul, when they leave us, we feel a bit of sadness in our hearts, regardless of how many years it's been. We remember them. Hindus believe that if you pray to Lord Ganesh, you find that inner peace in you. And this is exactly what Ms. Meera was trying to explain to us today. Right. In my hand, I have a phone. And the reason being is because I found an article about a few weeks back, and it was related to the war. And I'm a radio presenter. So I interview quite a few people related to different topics, which is related to the UK. And one particular topic I found, which I was trying to print out, but I just found out that I wasn't able to print out. So I have it on my phone. I'd like to share it with you. But before I do, I'd like to first of all thank Mr. Satya Manyas, who's been on the stage guiding me. He's, of course, part of the Hindu Council, and he's part of the Metropolitan Police Hindu Association in London. So thank you so much. He has brought with him two lovely people who I've been meaning to introduce for quite a while, but they've just arrived now. So I'm going to ask them to come on stage. But before I do, just to give you a very brief introduction to them, his name is, well, many people know him as Lord Poppet. He is, of course, a British Asian businessman and politician. I have been asked not to give too much of an introduction and that he will on stage. So if Mr. Poppet could please kindly come on stage and introduce himself here, we'd be very honored. Thank you. Lovely. We'd like a few words from you as well for today's remembrance.
Sure. Thank you. I think she has given a very good introduction of me anyway. My name is Lord Poppet. I'm a government whip in the House of Lords and Minister to the Crown for Business, Innovation, Skills and Transport. I came in this country as a refugee, what you call asylum seeker these days, in 1971 at the age of 17. And ever since I've lived in this country. It is the value of this country that's made me what I am today. So I'm thankful. And I think that'll be good enough. Is it okay? And these values we respect. This is what our soldiers do worldwide to make sure that we protect people, minorities, and make sure that we bring the best values in the human race.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Also with Mr. Poppet, we have, of course, Lord Ahmed, and I'd like to call upon stage Lord Ahmed as well, please, just to say a few words as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon and namaskar, and may I say from the outset what a pleasure it is to be here with you this afternoon. My apologies for my late arrival, coming all the way from the other part of London in Wimbledon. It's a bit of a challenge, as we all know, even on a Sunday. Very briefly, my name's Tariq Ahmed, known in official circles as Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon, which defies where I come from. But I'm also now Under Secretary of State in the Department of Communities and Local Government, and I'm the Minister responsible for communities and faith engagement. And in that respect, a couple of things that I did wish to share with you today. Today, of course, is Remembrance Sunday, and many people up and down the country will be remembering those who fell in battle. 100 years ago, the Great War began. But I think upon reflection, and as our lovely host this afternoon has also mentioned, is about the issue of the Great War, but also the sacrifice that were made, not just by British troops as we would traditionally know them, but the troops that were of the wider British Empire. And in that, there were many people from around the world. But the British Indian Army at that time played a significant role to ensure the protections and freedoms and indeed liberties we enjoy today. Only a week or so ago, part of the initiatives of my department in communities is about identifying those people who were awarded the Victoria Cross. As those familiar with the services will know, that's the highest award that can be given for courage, bravery, and valor. And in that regard, there are many drawn from the Indian subcontinent who actually are also recipients of that. And only, as I said last week, the first such recipient who served in the British Army, Khudahat Khan, I attended an event celebrating his contributions to the Great War. And here was a man who was born in India, left that great country, and fought not within the vicinity of India, but fought for the freedoms we know today in the battlefields of France alongside other British troops. And I bring that fast forward, if I may, just in the brief word that I want to say about today. Too often we talk about Britain today and the challenges we face, but our history is testament to the incredible contributions that people have made from what was the British Empire then and the Commonwealth as we know it today. And I've always said in my capacity as Minister for Communities, the diversity of our nation is truly our strength. And faith communities are an integral part of defining what Britain is today. I'm delighted to be here with my colleague and friend, Lord Poppet, and I think his example again is demonstrable of exactly the kind of Britain we not only believe in, but the kind of Britain we want to see. And therefore it is with great humility, I wish to also thank all members of not just this temple, but Hindus from across the country who make an incredible contribution to our way of life, enriching the diversity of our great country. And long may that continue. Thank you for inviting me here, and I wish you well in all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. After these people passed away, we created stories, we created poems, we created history behind each and everybody's death. When one person leaves, another person is born. When one person decides to start a new journey, they don't let go of their past. In fact, they like to write about it. Some people write about it, some people sing about it, some people write biographies about it. Autobiographies are very well known as well. Now, I have a few names in mind which I'll share with you in just a few moments. But before I do, there is something which I was a big English fanatic when it came to GCSEs and A-levels and history as well. And one particular person I remember is Maya Angelou, who used to write beautiful poems related to the war, related to people who slaved off just to work and serve in the war as well. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that poem with me today, but there's one quote I do remember, which was written in 1918. It was by Maura Michael, who was an American writer. They kept a promise that will she keep the faith in which she promised to wear a poppy in honor of our dead. This poem is still very well known. A lot of people who enjoy history and English will probably recognize this particular poem. But today on stage, I'd like to call Miss Panna Vicaria to narrate a beautiful poem for us and share with us here on the stage. Thank you.
Namaste. Just before I do my reciting my poem, I actually had the opportunity when I was in the TA to do the Senatov parade. And it was one of those moments that I will never forget, because the silence at the Senatov, not even a pin, you couldn't even hear anyone sneeze. That's how quiet it was. And also, something I also learnt was our core values when we're in the British Army, which is sea drills. And it does relate to all of us here, because we have courage, we have discipline, respect for others, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. And that is what we are, what we do every day. Let me start my poem. Feel no guilty in laughter, that know how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile, that they are not here to share. You cannot grieve forever, they would not want you to. They'd hope that you would carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times and the way you showed you cared. The days you spent together, all the happiness you shared. Let the memories surround you. A word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day. That brings them back as clearly as though they were still here. Fills you with a feeling they will always be near. For if you keep those moments, you will never be apart. You will live forever, locked safely in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you. It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much. Just a few weeks back, as I mentioned on radio, we had the father of one army officer from the RAF, Kishore Chauhan. He lost his son at the age of 29 on April this year, who served in the army for quite a while. And for a British Asian to work in the army, it's not normal. I'll be very honest with you. Normally, our parents say, I'd like you to become a doctor, a dentist, I'd like you to become a teacher. But Rakesh put his foot down and said, no, father, I'm going to serve our country. And he also told his dad, don't wait for me, because I may never come back, but be prepared, because this is my second life. Now, I was reading about him earlier on. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the printout, but if you do a search on him, you will actually realize what he did for our country as well. He got killed in Afghanistan in April in 2014. And his father, up until today, in fact, has conducted his own memorial for his son, and is proud to say that as a British Asian, other British Asians should as well contribute to the army to show their love, their support, and do what his son did. His son showed bravery. And that's what the World War I, World War II was about as well. Bravery, serving the community, showing strength, sacrificing as well. We may not know anybody from the World War I or World War II, and we're all sitting here today in Siddhashram Shakti Center in this beautiful ceremony. But when you go home today, just minutes before you go to sleep, just for a few moments, think about those who have actually sacrificed their lives for us. When someone passes away in our family or friend, we do feel for them. We have a few tears in our eyes. We feel, they've gone, they've left us. We'll feel a bit of sadness. But today, when you get a chance, just sit there and think for a few moments what those people went through 100 years ago and how lucky we are here in the UK. We have such a beautiful life. We complain we don't have anything, but to be honest, we have everything. We're with our families. We're able to eat proper food. We're able to choose what we want to eat. Pizza, Chinese, McDonald's, whatever it is. And think about those who couldn't. Think about the education we're offered here in the UK as well. Think how lucky we are that we have NHS. We can have free education here. But those who were serving it during the World War I and II, did they get that? No. Did they have the love of the Father with them during Christmas? Were they able to spend Christmas with them? Were they able to have meals with them? No. Think of those mothers who slaved away whilst being pregnant, working in factories day and night. And think about the maternity facilities here now in the UK. If I'm not mistaken, I think I've mentioned everybody today, but if I haven't, first of all, I'd like to say a very warm welcome and thank you again to Mr. Mustafa Phil, Director of Faith Forum for London, Mr. Rehan Haider, Department of Communities and Local Government, Ms. Hilary Patel, Department of Communities and Local Government, Mr. Warwick Hawkins, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, Mr. Haribhai Halai, he's the President, Hindu Forum of Britain, Boam Jun Park, I'm sorry if I've mentioned the name wrong, Mr. Malcolm Debu, thank you again for your lovely speech, Mr. Satya Minas, thank you again, and he's going to come on stage and tell me one more thing.
My sincere apologies, yeah, I'll give it. Yeah. I would like to invite my learned colleague and one of the main leaders of Hindu community, Shri Haribhai Halai ji. He is the President of Hindu Forum of Britain, to please come on the stage and say a few words, please. Hari ji.
Namaste. Jai Shri Krishna. Lot is said about the brave soldiers who have given their life 100 years ago, and they still keep on doing for our safety so that we can actually enjoy a safe life that we are doing now. All I say, and pray for them. Because of you, we are safe in this country and enjoying our life. Thank you very much.
I do apologize for the little hiccup. I really would apologize to Lord Poppet, and I would like to invite him to come on the stage. He's one of the Hindu icons from Harrow, and he was the first chairman of the Conservative Friends of India as well, an organization launched by the Prime Minister David Cameron in 2012. Lord Poppet founded and funds registered charities, and I think he has made contributions worth over £400,000 to charities and voluntary organizations over the last 5 years. I really would like to invite him, with my apologies, to say a few words and a note of guidance and his vision for the Hindus in this part of the world. Can I possibly invite Lord Poppet to accept my apologies and say a few words? Lord Poppet.
Thank you for that kind word. Nice to see so many good friends, in particular my noble friend, Lord Ahmed, who's, as you know, a minister in the Department of DCLG, and also he's a minister for faith and communities. My very warm welcome to my very dear friend. It is an honor to be here amongst so many of you, to remember and pay tribute to our armed forces who sacrificed their life for freedom, the freedom that we're enjoying in this great country today. In respect of what the lady mentioned earlier about the India's participation in that World War I, 1.27 million people took part in that war. Of that, 47,000 were killed. So India made a very good contribution for the First World War. The First World War was meant to be the last war, but sadly that's not the case. We are still at war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria now as well. But in Mahabharata they say that there's no peace without war. And that is a reality. But I'm very pleased that the Siddhashram Shakti Center and Faith Forum of London choose to host this service in Harrow, in my hometown. I've lived here just over 40 years. And being Lord of Harrow, I thought I should be here. I have a flight at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to rush in a few minutes to go to Lusaka as a government minister to pay tribute to the head of state who passed away in London just last week. But thank you for inviting me here. If I just say a few things, the lady has said already about this great country. I did say earlier that I came from Uganda, and I came here on the day that Idi Amin, that brutal dictator, had a coup. It was with the help of the British Army and the Tanzanian Army that Uganda is now a free country, and it's now enjoying the very values that we enjoy in this country. And it is because of our armed forces over and over again defended and fought for our countries, for this country too as well. They protected our country and our values, the rule of law, the protection of minorities, the right to vote, education for our children, healthcare for our parents, tolerance and equality. And these are the values what this country stands for. I quite often give a speech, now given one. This is a country when a mother who's expecting her first baby, that baby gets that benefit and the advantage this country provides. The mother gets the maternity leave, the father gets a paternity leave, and when the child is born, you get child benefit and free education to go with it. And once he's 18, if he's kicked out by his parents, he can go to the local council here and get his free housing as well. If he can't get a job, he gets job seekers allowance. And of course, it was mentioned earlier, a free national health service in his old age, he gets a free care home. And on his or her death, you get a coffin too. So this is a country that looks after a fellow human being from the time he or she is born to the time he dies. And these are the values we do want to uphold. And I'm pleased the ladies say that we need more British Indians and British Asians in our army, in our police, in our courts. The more we have, the better, because this is a great country that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Poppet. I would like to invite, I think, another colleague of mine, Mr. Mustafa Field, MBE, Director, Faith Forum for London, to come on the stage and say a few words. Mustafa.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to say I'm delighted to be here. It really is remarkable that so many people have come here to remember. And it's poignant that we're marking the centenary this year and for the next 4 years, that we remember those who gave for Britain from the diverse parts of the world, from the Commonwealth. The contribution of India particularly exceeded the contribution of other countries in the part of the Commonwealth. And that's something very significant. Much has been said today, and I don't want to repeat, but I just want to share some things that I felt are very significant and important to me. India provided servicemen and women from diverse services, so, things from like the merchant services to nursing. The Queen Alexandra Imperial Military Nursing Service provide over 10,000 people as nurses across World War I. And this originated from India. So this was particularly very significant. For those of you who are fortunate enough to visit Belgium and France and see some of the graves of anonymous servicemen, you will see this massive contribution, and it really makes you think what these men went through. The British Library has records of some of the letters of some of the servicemen who came to Britain who were wounded and in Brighton and stayed. And many of these letters speak about some of the yearning of these men for their families and the challenges that they had. And that's something that I think we really need to remember, that history and pick on it, because it really shows us what these men and women went through. Until recently, the Chhatri, which represents the umbrella, which is a memorial in Brighton, a significant memorial, was the only memorial that sort of commemorated the Hindu and Sikh contribution to World War I. This was opened in 1921, and I do recommend many of you to visit it and really learn about the history that people of diverse communities and diverse faiths made to this country, and that continue to make this contribution. In particular, I know, great to see in London that we see the strong contribution of faiths, and we wish this continues. And I thank you all, and I ask you all just to remember those who did give their lives, and let's honor them and keep our actions to their memory. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mustafa-ji. On behalf of Hindu Council United Kingdom, I'm very proud to be part of the commemoration of the contribution of the British Indian Army during the First World War. And fortunately, my grandfather was part of it. And now that we remember of the people who lost their lives, the only thing I can remember, 3 of my aunties, my mama's wives, passed away with sorrow and grief because they didn't know whether the husbands were going to come back home or not. And that was a sad history for our family. But most importantly, we pay homage to the 16 million people who died around the world during the World War I conflict. From the British Indian Army, as it has been already mentioned, I think I've got statistics, we are still working out the correct figures, but nearly 1.9 million soldiers took part in the World War I. Out of this, around 70%, which is about 800,000 people, they were all Hindus. 20%, I understand, were Sikhs. And of course, our colleagues, we still call them Indians, and Zoroastrian, Malcolm ji said so many things, and we are so proud of Zoroastrians and Parsis to be part of India. And I never knew they were not Hindus or something. I thought they were all. Tata ji and Field Marshal Manekshaw you mentioned, we could have never guessed he was other than a Hindu. But that's history. And we are very proud of every Indian who is serving the nation in such a capable and able manner. And we are very proud of Lord Amoji and Lord Poppet for gracing this event. And my grandfather, Gurdit Singh, is a Rajput name from Jammu and Kashmir, and the royal history of well over 5,000 years from coming down for from Lord Rama. He joined 25th Cavalry. He was a good sawar. He was a cavalier in the World War I. He was not educated, so unfortunately he couldn't get promoted. But he was part of the World War I operation, and his normal posting was near border of current Pakistan and Afghanistan. During the war, Cavalier Gurdeep Singh with his cavalry crossed today's Afghanistan and then took part in the action up to Egypt and Sinai through Iran and Iraq. Gurdeep Singh was awarded Star Medal issued to those who saw service in operational theatre of war from 5th of August 14 to 31st of December 15, and a Victory Medal. It's only with the grace of my learned colleague, I think, Warwick Hawkinji, who I think is leading a very big show in World War I, which will be taking place on 10th of March. He, in a meeting, one of the majors told me that if the medals belong to your family, then you can get them mounted on your right. So I'm proud to be wearing those two medals, and they are about 100 years old medals. I'm so proud of our history, and I think take that honor of on behalf of every Indian in this world to be sharing those medals today. Let us commemorate the service provided by the soldiers from all the faiths during the First World War. Let us contribute and work towards running the world affairs in just and fair manner. And finally, I would say little prayer, I think I've gathered from somewhere, wrote it myself or copied somewhere, I think. We pray to Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and all our Hindu goddesses. Hey God, hey Devi, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May peace radiate and flow everywhere in the whole universe. Oh Lord, may all souls rest in peace, and we will remember them forever. Thank you very much. And have I missed anybody?
Yeah, just before we end the function this evening, I'd like to call upon Mr. Tiwari on stage. If you could just say a few words, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, my name is Bhadresh Trivedi, not Tiwari. Let me introduce myself to begin with. I'm Bhadresh Trivedi, working for prison service in the UK. I'm the faith advisor for the Hindus for the UK prisons, and I'm the only full-time Hindu chaplain for the UK prisons as well. We have heard respected Lord Popatji, Lord Ahmadji, my good friend and spiritual leader, Dr. Rajeshji, who is a police Hindu chaplain, and I'm a prison Hindu chaplain. This is the two areas people are worried about to go near to. Right, we have heard so many things about the history, about the World War. I had a couple of more pages to read, but I just said, let me just begin with what I think about World War I and what we have to learn out of this. Well, I'm sad to say that we are here today to talk about World War I. This is not a happy celebration, by the way. Where many lives were lost, it is important that we as a Hindu community send a message to the world that peace, love, and respect are the only ingredients for a successful global community. We must try to resolve all the conflicts, both present and in the future, by talking to each other and getting everyone to understand the importance of mankind. As all Hindu will know, that Lord Krishna tried his level best to resolve ongoing conflict that occurred in Mahabharata by requesting Duryodhana not to enter into the war. And as Gandhiji once said, that eye for an eye will make the world go blind. Gandhiji said this in the 20th century, in the different era at that time, where nations were not able to resolve their disagreement that easily. But now, we are in 21st century. However, we must place Gandhiji's quotation in a different and a modern context in this 21st century, which has seen the fall of World Trade Center, the Mumbai terror attacks, recently the killing of our own soldier, Lee Rigby, in the village. We as a Hindu community must therefore support the British government in its agenda to tackle terrorism, because it is now individuals who are disrespecting and undermining the human unity through the terrorism. It is the terrorism which will rise another world war. We must not let these individuals succeed in their evil plans. If we unite and support the government, we will achieve this. And remember this, Hinduism's core value is peace and nothing but the peace. Human should be able to talk to humans easily, without fear, with freedom and respect, whatever background they come from. We as a community must promote this core value. And this is what our request and a message to our global community, to help each other, to every government who are trying to resolve this matter. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Namaskar and thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to request Mustafa Ji to introduce one of our Muslim leaders to say a few words.
I'd like to introduce Sayyid Yusuf Al-Khui, OBE, who's the director at the Khui Foundation and also a council member at the Faiths Forum for London. Thank you. It's I haven't really given him much notice for this, but I felt that as he's come here, I think it's very important that we are able to hear from the diverse sort of contribution.
Sorry, I've been given 30-second notice for this, so you have to forgive me. First of all, I'm so pleased to be here at this wonderful occasion at the Hindu temple with faith communities, Zaradishtian and others who are taking part. I just like to say I share the sentiments expressed by many that we in the United Kingdom, we are very lucky to have many privileges people lack in many parts of the world, such as the freedom of worship and all the other benefits people mentioned before me. And this is maybe a direct result to the sacrifice that the soldiers made in the First World War. And we have an opportunity to come up with the best that humanity can offer in terms of good conduct between communities, good interfaith relations, and peaceful coexistence between the human race. I also like to say that the different, the Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Zaradishtian soldiers work together to achieve and be part of the bigger British Empire. And we really need to continue that spirit in this country, cooperating, resolving our differences. I too work in the prison service, and quite often, before you joined us, there was no Hindu representation. I find myself having to speak for the rights of the Hindu and Sikh and Buddhist prisoners who tended to be a bit marginal. I also want to say that a little bit about the contribution of the British Army. You find that, for example, when you go to Hong Kong, the mosque built there was actually built by the British Army. a lot of people tend to forget that these soldiers, no matter what religion they were from, the British Army tried to cater for their religious and other needs. And that's something we need to acknowledge. And thank you very much for this opportunity at 30-second notice. But I hope I sort of try to address what Mustafa has asked me to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just before we end the show, we have just one more dance performance. Okay, one more dance performance, and we'll have our final speech as well towards the end. And then, of course, there are refreshments as well. So I'd like to call on stage Miss Meera, who'll be performing in just a few moments. Thank you.
Hello, I would like to conclude this evening with a very short bhajan, Prabhuji. This is a track from Chants of India by Pandit Ravi Shankar. This is a prayer for peace.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Miss Meera. Before you leave this afternoon, first of all, we'd just like to call upon Gurudev, Dr. Rajeshji, and the other dignitaries who come on stage in just a few moments. Just to remind you, there are some refreshments as well, just behind at the entrance there will be some refreshments, so please stay for the refreshments as well. And thereafter, I would just like to say first of all, thank you for attending this afternoon. I know it's not easy on a Sunday when everybody's busy or wants to relax with family, but to take your time out to come here from north, south, east, west, just to just to celebrate the lives of those who served in this country. Today we've been talking about how we feel sad that those have sacrificed their lives, but at the same time, we need to celebrate their lives as well. Because of them, we've been able to stand here today and say how proud we are of our country, for those who've served our country, sacrificed their families for us. Just before I call the dignitaries on stage, would anybody else like to share a story with us on stage? Like just share anything with us that feels that they could relate to the World War, or who knows anybody who took part in the World War I or II? Is there anyone who would like to share a simple story? Anyone? I can see someone's hand up there. Is a little kid. Okay, right. They've given us 5 minutes. Basically, all I'd like to say first of all is on behalf of Siddhashram Shakti Center that Gurudev Rajeshji and of course the Hindu Council UK have put this organization together, not just to bring communities together, but also to give out a message. When I was inside earlier on, Lord Popat asked me if I could just quote a few words. And he says, "Let us teach our children the future of our country, why we are so lucky and why we should be so proud of what this country represents." So I thank you all today. I would like to end by reading out one of the most famous war poems in Flandersville by Canadian soldier John McCrae. Now, by reading this poem, it doesn't mean I'm ending the show, but it's a few words, and it says, "Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high." This is a very small and simple message. We've all come together as mixed communities, whether you're from a Hindu background, Zoroastrian background, Muslim background. But at the end of the day, it's not about religion. It's about humanity. One person earlier on, in fact, Gurudev earlier on had chanted the Gayatri Mantra. Not everybody knows the Gayatri Mantra, but for the Hindus, it's a prayer of peace. Earlier on, Mr. Debu was talking about the Zoroastrian community. I'm very closely knitted to the Zoroastrian community, and I know what their prayers are about, how they pray and who they pray to. And when they pray, again, they say their own prayers, their own chanting. When we go to church, we sing hymns from the Bible. We say some verses from the Bible. That's their way of bringing peace together. When we go to the Gurdwara, we say a few lines or we say the Onkar, which is for you, maybe you don't know, maybe you think, I don't know what that is. But for the Sikhs, it's a very, very strong definition of bringing peace to the community. So my point today is that each one of you are from different backgrounds, different communities. We're not here to celebrate different religion. We're here to celebrate the lives of those who've left us, but celebrate the lives of the strength they had when they fought the war. On stage, I'd like to call all the dignitaries. I'd like to call on stage Gurudev, Dr. Rajeshji, and Mr. Satya Minas. And before I do, just one more word message as well. This morning, I mentioned about a customer who I had no idea of, passed away in the World War, well, his son passed away in World War II. I was a stranger to that family, but I brought my own family closer together. The World War I and II has broken many families, but brought our families together. Same way, this day, November 9th, 2014, has brought all of you close together. And as I mentioned before, you are from different communities. People on my right have served in the community. And today, they ask you to contribute as well. So, as I mentioned before, we all pray in different ways. Gurudev chanted the Gayatri Mantra. Somebody else chanted the namaz. This morning, you may have done a prayer. This is all to bring peace. But today, I'm not bringing religion here. I'm bringing our culture and community. I'm bringing humanity here. Today, I'd like you all, just before you go home, remember these few words. We need to bring peace and break this war. People have suffered and still are suffering because they have lost families and friends in the war. And we are here to build our relationship, to make it strong as one community. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for being a lovely audience. I'm Kajal, and it's been a pleasure speaking to all of you this afternoon. I'm going to hand the mic over to our founder, spiritual leader, and of course, our guide, Gurudev, Dr. Rajashri. Jai Gurudev.
First of all, thank you, ministers, counselors, and all guests. I would like to request everyone, can you please stand up so we can pray to God for the departure soul. अब सौंप दिया इस जीवन का सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में, सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों, है जीत तुम्हारे हाथों और हार तुम्हारे हाथों में, और हार तुम्हारे ओम पूर्णमः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। हरि ओम शांति 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 ओम। Thank you very much.
I'm so pleased to announce that Veena Trivedi ji's birthday is today. We would like to wish her a very happy birthday, and refreshments will be served in a few minutes. Please don't go without refreshments. We are so very grateful to you for gracing this event, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just 1 minute, sorry. Can we just end up with by reading out one of the most important and famous war poems of the 1940 war, In Flanders Field by Canadian soldier John McCrae. Take up our quarrel with foe, to you from failing hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high.
Thank you. Jasmine, leave the table here. Bring the cake here. This is a surprise for Mrs. Trivedi. In present of all gods and all the VIP guests and also ministers.
I have been given a chance to sing happy birthday, so please join, okay? Blow the candle, please. Blow the candle. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bina. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Refreshment is there. Please, all the guests without refreshment, do not go home. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, there in the morning I saw everything. See, in the future, I'm especially with the scouts over there. Thank you.